Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls is taking the world by storm. But what if you've already blown through all the content you're interested in, or your funds are a little light and you're looking for something a little bit different and in your price range, but still within the same vein? What is up, everybody? My name is PandaMaster, and today I'm going over 16 Marvel games similar to Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls in various ways. Now, I want to clarify that this isn't a top 16 best Marvel games list or top 16 games that you absolutely need to check out if you're a Marvel fan. This is just sort of jumping onto the excitement of Marvel Tokon. I, for one, have been playing it every single day and super obsessed with it, but now it's got me ravenous for more Marvel content. And so I started looking around at more games that either are similar in that they're fighting games related to Marvel characters or some other sort of things to scratch that Marvel itch. Another thing about this list is that every single one of these games is available physically, complete on disc, or in the case of Switch cartridge. For anybody who knows me or has been following my content recently, I have constantly been harping on the fact that we need to protect physical media, and it is super atrocious what PlayStation is doing, getting rid of all physical media after 2027. So you'll be happy to know that every single one of these games you can get physically, and it'll work right off the disc, no internet connection required. Just super awesome. So let's get into the list. This is in no particular order. Again, this isn't trying to do a best of list. This is simply more games to recommend if you enjoy Marvel Tokon and you're looking for more, or you're looking for something a little bit more in your price range. Either way, let's get into it. Starting off, let's talk about Iron Man VR. Now, I know this is a bit of a weird title to start off on. It's not super similar to Tokon, but if you're really into role playing your favorite Marvel characters, there are few games better than Iron Man VR. Now, it's PSVR launch. I played right at launch. That system is not great. It's a very hard system to put really good VR games on. And so if you have a Quest, I would heavily recommend checking out that port, although it's still perfectly serviceable on PSVR, just with a little bit of jank. But when it works really, really well. I mean, the feeling of flying around as Iron Man, being able to control your where you're going and how you're moving based on where your hands are. I mean, this is as close to a real life Iron Man experience as pretty much everybody's gonna get. And it's super, super underrated. I cannot recommend it enough. It's also from the same devs as Batman Arkham Shadow, which a lot of people really loved and it won a ton of awards. And so this was the game they worked on before Arkham, and you can really tell like it's very much a love letter to Iron Man and Marvel in general. And while it's not a perfect game, I would heavily recommend it to anyone with a VR headset with the game and its story. I'm trying to say that. But heavily recommend it. I know it's a bit of a weird game to start off on, but I got all kinds of weird picks in here. Next up, the game I'm going to have to defend a little bit here. It's Marvel's Avengers. And before you click off the video, I want you to hear me out. Yes, I know it's false. Listen, I platinumed the game. I know true pain. I know everything that is wrong with Marvel's Avengers. However, nowadays you can get it for dirt cheap, and it has one of the best Marvel campaigns of any Marvel game ever, which I know is a high bar to clear, but that's how serious I am about Crystal Dynamics. I mean, these are the people that made the 2013 Tomb Raider, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And you can feel that energy here. The actual campaign of Avengers is super solid. The gameplay of each playable character is really, really good. Even when it comes to the DLC characters like Black Panther, Winter Soldier, they're all very good. I don't necessarily want to talk about the Spider-Man slinging, but I mean, it's not a perfect game. We all know this. The live service content was abysmal, and it was one of the most repetitious games I ever played. But all that has to do with the end game content. This actual story content here is some of the best we've ever gotten from a Marvel game. And again, at the asking point for a lot of physical copies of this game, it's super, super accessible and really, really low bar to entry for some really quality content. Yes, not all the content is great. I would not recommend going for the platinum like I did, but if you just go into the campaign, sort of cherry pick what you want to experience out of the end game content. There's a lot of fun to be had here. And I've seen plenty of people on Twitter or other areas of the internet start to come around on this game. And I think when you don't look at the promise that this game was trying to deliver and just take it for what it is and where it excels, it's a lot of fun. And I really do recommend it for any Marvel fan. Moving on here, I'm getting away from the controversial takes. This one, I think nobody would argue with. It's Lego Marvel Superheroes. I mean, this is probably the best Marvel game ever made, which is really crazy to say. But Lego Marvel Superheroes scratches the itch of any Marvel fan. I mean, and it's also great with the fact that a kid can get into this. I mean, it is baby's first Marvel game to an extent. I think this has a difficult, and there is an easier game on this list that is truly baby's first Marvel game that we'll get to later. But this is a game that anyone can enjoy. You've got the quirkiness of the Lego brand mixed together with pretty much every Marvel character you can think of. They've got the Avengers, X-Men, Spider-Man, everything in between. They've even got some Inhumans in there. I mean, pretty much anybody you can think of, they're here. The story is really great. Everything works really well. It does what a lot of the more recent MCU movies can actually do well, which is incorporating Marvel characters in a very fluid way and make the world feel alive with Marvel characters. And that's super awesome. This is a Marvel Comics fan's wet dream. I highly recommend it. If you have not played this game and you're watching this video, I imagine you are a fan of Marvel. You owe it to yourself to pick this up. It's not that expensive, and yeah, definite easy recommend. Moving on, another game that is super underrated and I have no issue talking about whatsoever. It's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Eidos Montreal. This is sort of like the other side of the Marvel's Avengers because this is with Marvel teaming up with Square Enix. So they had Marvel's Avengers on the Crystal Dynamics side and Guardians of the Galaxy with Eidos Montreal. These are the people that made Deus Ex, and it clearly shows here this is a stunning game that a lot of people took for granted because a lot of people weren't happy with the fact that you could only play as Star Lord and everybody else were assist like characters that you'd see in a Mass Effect game. But honestly, this really is Mass Effect with Guardians of the Galaxy because when I tell you the storytelling of this game, I mean, it got nominated for Best Narrative at the Game Awards for 2020, whatever year it came out. Um, and it absolutely deserves that title. This is a fantastic story that really hits you emotionally. The comedic beats are perfectly on point. Obviously, comedy is subjective, so your mileage may vary, but I loved it. I think about this game pretty often, especially with all the Marvel talk that is just being flowed through the chats. So when you talk about Marvel games, this one is one that pretty consistently pops in my mind as one of the better ones, and it is very underrated. And Montreal is kind of really in a state of limbo right now. There's constant talks of them being shuttered or dissolved or merged into other companies. They have really went through the ringer since the release of this game, and it sucks because I would have loved to see a sequel because they did pretty much everything right that they set out to do. And I heavily recommend it. It is truly underrated. Also, pretty inexpensive to pick up at this point, so I would super recommend it. Coming up next is a game that is probably the most expensive on this list to get a hold of, so it does defeat I think a lot of the purpose of this video, but I had to mention it. So if you do have a copy laying around, if you don't, this might, hurt your wallet a little bit, but it's Deadpool, the game. Everybody who knows anything about this game is probably cheering and saying absolutely because it is a darling Marvel game. It's certainly not perfect. It's pretty repetitive. And of course, being a comedic game, all of that humor is subjective. Let's be real here. Deadpool's pretty sexist in this game. I mean, a lot of content in this game hasn't aged particularly well, but if you are down for this kind of content, if you kind of put that stuff aside a little bit and you turn your brain off and you're just down to have a good time with some laughs and not take things too seriously, Deadpool is a fantastically hilarious game with a lot of fun and charm. Back from the 360 PS3 days, it has a lot of that charm. And so the reviews were kind of because at that time you had a ton of hack and slashy action adventure games being pumped out every single day. And Deadpool didn't really do a whole lot different compared to those. But for Marvel fans, especially Deadpool fans, this was pretty much everything they could have asked for. And so, for any fan of that genre or this style of gameplay slash superhero fun, this is a no brainer. It's really difficult to get a hold of if you go on, like, I mean, usually used copies of the game are anywhere for around like $100 or more because it's been delisted because of licensing issues. So this one is a pretty chunk of change to get a hold of. But if you do have yourself a copy, I mean, it's absolutely well worth your time. Next up, let's talk about the GOAT. Let's talk about Marvel's Spider Man for PS4. I mean, Insomniac really knocked it out of the park the first time. Some of the side content could have been a little bit better, but they've rectified that in sequels. Not going to talk about Spider Man 2 here. I know how people feel about it, even though I'm perfectly fine with it. But there are some issues with the physical version, so that's why I'm really talking about the first game here. And I also feel like a lot of people do gravitate towards the first Spider Man game as this all encompassing experience because while it does set up Miles, this is very much a firm Peter Parker game. It's the lightning in a bottle. Everything afterwards is just iterating on this original version that came before. So I think at the end of the day, the recommendation goes to the one that started it all. There's very little that I can say about this game that, would be negative in any way. I think the story is absolutely fantastic. Regardless of how you feel about the face swap with the remaster or what, I don't personally mind it. I'm not gonna lie, I thought the OG actor was a little uncanny valley for my taste. I don't know if it was the eyebrows or what, but the new one I don't think is necessarily this huge step up because he's a little like cookie cutter, like Tom Holland lookalike. Like I don't know. It's whatever, but I'm fine with it. I don't really have a huge dog in that fight, but this is obviously the best Spider-Man game that has been released, up to that point. I think the swinging is fantastic. I mean, you truly can just get lost in this world. I've platinumed the game. Beat it on its hardest difficulty, new game plus, all that. I mean, I truly am in love with this game. It's one of my favorite games that I've ever played as a massive Spider-Man fan. If you have any interest whatsoever, you absolutely should play this. This is another no-brainer here. Um, Really, almost no reason to include it on this list because I think everyone interested has probably played. But if you somehow have been living under a rock or have been on the fence in any way, you owe it to yourself as a Marvel fan to play this game. And that's all I got for that one. Moving on. Sure, a lot of people expected more fighting games on this list. Here you go. I mean, how can we talk about Marvel Tokon without talking about Marvel vs. Capcom? So I'm going to talk about Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 first, because that one's the easiest one to get your hands on, with a caveat that we will be talking about later. I'm sure a lot of fighting game fans are screaming at me right now. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is the newest Marvel vs. Capcom that people care about because we do not talk about Infinite. But the art style here is really what grabs me. It's this sort of comic booky, cell shaded style that really is pretty unique for a fighting game. I'd say the closest game is probably Street Fighter 4 in its aesthetic. And so, if you are a little more nostalgic for the 3D animated era, because everything before there was all sprite work, this one was actual like 3D animation here, and it looks really, really good. And I think it holds up. And with the tag team format, it's still a game that is very, very well received and works really well. There's a lot of awesome characters between Marvel's lineup and then Capcom's. The Ultimate Edition adds another 12 characters to the roster because that was one of the chief complaints of the original release was that there were a few cut characters. Obviously, it was because they were adding a lot more depth to them, but it did sting a little. Ultimate pretty much remedies that. And so it's a super fun fighter that still holds up to this day. So if you do miss the Capcom days of Marvel fighting games, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is very much still viable to play, and I heavily recommend it. Next up, let's let's get controversial here again. I don't think anyone would ever recommend this game, but I'm me. Here we go. If you have any vested interest in Spider-Man at all and you like games, I think you should play The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm sorry. I know please don't click away. I know it's not perfect. But pre Insomniac Spider-Man, there were few games that let you truly take advantage of being Spider-Man in an open world, quite like Chasm 2. I know it's not a perfect game. I know the combat's repetitive, but those Russian hideouts where you could unlock some really cool suits were really fun. You get to play around with some of the rogues gallery. Again, it's not perfect, but as a kid, I loved going through here and just swinging around New York. The swinging was pretty much the best it had ever been up to that point. Yes, Insomniac blows it out of the water now, but again, this is another one that's pretty cheap to get a hold of now. If you look online, it gets a little pricey because this is another one where the licensing is removed, but it's a Spider-Man game, which means there are a lot of copies floating around there. It might be getting a little dicey now because of just kind of how bad the market's gotten with the news that PlayStation's getting rid of, discs, but it's still not too difficult to find. And honestly, again, if you don't think you're going to like it, I'm not going to try to be like you need to play this game. But if you're a huge Spider-Man fan, I think you're gonna have fun here because I did. Like I understand the issues that it had with it, but growing up playing this game, I didn't feel any of that. I was just having fun playing Spider-Man. So I really do recommend it. It's not a perfect game, but if you have any curiosity or if you've ever wondered, maybe would I maybe think you should take the plunge. I think you could. There's going to be things that might irk you a little bit, but I think there's plenty of fun to be had still. And why not? Just take the plunge, dude. It's not that bad. Moving on to another game that I will viciously defend, and a lot of people, pretty much everybody who's played this game probably would too. It's Marvel's Midnight Suns. This game kind of came and went because a lot of people weren't a fan of the XCOM formula, but this is XCOM meets Slay the Spire. I know that doesn't really help for a lot of casual gamers, but this game is super, super fun and very underrated. Also not perfect. It does this weird companion type system where you go back to your home base and you talk with everybody, but no one's romanceable, but they're so romantic. Like the sexual tension's crazy in this game. Everybody sounds like they want to marry you, but everything's platonic. And I think that's because Marvel just it's slash Disney slash some corporate entity didn't want you having sex with Spider-Man or something. I don't know what the exact reasoning was, but it feels like that's what's going on here because you get really close to these characters, but you can't romance them. And I'm not saying that I or anybody else is trying to be a horn dog in these games, but a lot of these relationships feel very romantic in nature where you can kind of take that relationship to the next level, but it never happens. So a lot of the relationships feel unfinished. Again, I know this is a recommendation thing, but I'm just getting on a tangent about it. It's very weird, and I'll call it out every time. But the actual moment to moment gameplay is super fantastic. Kind of have this almost roguelike structure where the card pulls are random, so it keeps the combat feeling fresh. You're not able to just stick to one unique little like try hard combo. It does all kind of depend on the card pulls that you get. And so it keeps fights feeling dynamic and fresh. And it's not near as difficult as your XCOM game. I think that is a barrier to entry for a lot of players because the XCOM games are not known to be very forgiving. And while this does have its degree of challenge, I think there's a lot more flexibility and accessibility because of that sort of roguelike almost structure to it, to the actual moment to moment combat. And so it's a lot of fun, and I very much recommend it. Even if you're not much of like a strategy gamer, I think this is super, super fun. I heavily recommend it. This is another one where if you even have an inkling of interest in this game, I think you should check it out. It's well worth your time, and also not that pricey to get into at this point. So definitely should. Moving on. I mentioned how I had a game that was like baby's first Marvel game here. This definitely is, and also probably a game that not a lot of people will recommend, but this has a lot of nostalgia value, and I don't care. It's Disney Infinity 2.0. Now, I know the whole Toys to Life thing is very much dead, and it was absolutely a pyramid scheme, but now you can get these things for dirt cheap. I mean, you walk into any used game store, and they have like 50 of them plastered all over the place because all of these kids got rid of them and they still work really well. So the barrier for entry here is basically non-existent. Like these game stores want you to buy, like they'll pay you to take it at this point. And so it's very, very easy to get into. And I would recommend it. You're not going to get anything hardcore here. Honestly, the big draw here is the Toy Box, I think is what it's called. I'm blanking on the actual name, but the sort of like Minecraft creator mode that you can use everything that you've unlocked and have a lot of fun with. But again, these figures and the sets are all dirt cheap now. You can get the game for like a buck and then everything else for just like a couple dollars each, and it's not that difficult. And this was the big Marvel superheroes one, so you've got a lot of fun here. The combat is better than the first Infinity game, still not super complex, but if you've got any kids that you want to get into Marvel, this is still a really great way to do it. And now a pretty cost effective way to do it, whereas before you'd have to pay an arm and a leg because your kid would be hounding you about, I want this figure. Now you can get them all for dirt cheap and it's super easy to find. So I would heavily recommend it for anybody with kids that are playing Marvel, or if you're just a diehard Marvel fan and you're looking for something you haven't checked out yet, I say do it. It's not perfect, but it's a lot of fun for not that much. So yeah, this is another one that I guarantee is probably not on any other list, but I'm throwing it on here. Moving on, another bit of an oddball pick, but it's Spider-Man for PlayStation 1. Because this, I think, is the first console superhero game that really still holds up. Again, it's not perfect. It's a PlayStation 1 action adventure game, which means it's pretty held back by its hardware. But this was before the MCU, before really any film. I think at this point, Blade was the Marvel movie that had come out. And so it's not really restricted by a bunch of licensing where they can only use certain characters. Nah, this one's got Johnny Storm in it. It's got all kinds of fun Marvel characters. There's a ton of Marvel rogues that you can mess around with. It's not super challenging outside of just technical limitations that make it annoying to play in certain ways, but there's a lot of fun to be had here. A lot of classic Spider-Man rogues. It feels like a comic booky video game that again is not constrained by the licensing of today where they can only use certain things and you can just feel the legal jump roping that they have to do, this obstacle course they got to navigate to make sure a certain character can be used in a certain way. None of that's here. It's just a fun comic book time. If you like retro games, this is a lot of fun and still not super duper hard to come across like it kind of is. Again, with how the market's going, like it is getting increasingly difficult to find these games, but if you have access to this, I think it holds up and it's a lot of fun. So if you're into that retro type of vibe, this is a lot of fun. Next up, a game that, I mean, some might say there's better versions out there. They're not necessarily wrong, but as far as what you can access more easily, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3: The Black Order is still a ton of fun. Now, is it as good as 1 and 2? But way easier to get a hold of. And so you can get this game on Switch for not that pricey nowadays. And I think it does hold up. It's not a perfect game, but there's still a lot of fun to be had. And there's a lot of content to chase. I mean, you can easily spend 100 hours in this game trying to collect every costume, hero, upgrade, all kinds of fun stuff. It's really fun in co op to play with a friend. The upgrade system isn't perfect because at the end of the day, you're really just making numbers go up, and that's always just kind of eh. But if that's your forte, this is a lot of fun that you can just pick up and play. This is my travel game, so I'm actually going to a bachelor party back home in Indiana, which is a very long drive away. And so I don't really want to pack up my massive PC or any of my consoles, so my Switch is my go-to, and this is the go-to Marvel game to play on that because it's exclusive and it's a lot of fun. So I really would recommend it to any Switch owners who haven't played yet. I know the reviews weren't super enthusiastic about it, but this is still a lot of fun to get on discount. So I think, if it's on sale or if you can find a good used copy, it's honestly a no-brainer because there is a lot of fun to be had. There's a lot of Marvel heroes and villains to play as, and it's super cool. So I would recommend it. I think you should play it. Moving on. Okay, for all of my hardcore people that have played Marvel Tokon, they've platinum the game, they're, top rank, and they've easily breezed through it. Honestly, you're probably set playing this for a good long while, so you're probably not watching this video. But if for whatever reason maybe you didn't like Marvel Tokon and you really want to just get back to your roots, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics is for you. This is for the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 fanatics that, think that it peaked and has never been the same since. You might be right on that. And so there's no better way to play than through this collection. It's got all of the early Capcom games with Children of the Atom, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. It's even got the Punisher arcade game. I mean, it's got it all. It's got all seven, early Capcom Marvel collaborations, and it's super good. It's got all sorts of stuff. It's even got some Japanese exclusive stuff coming to the US for the first time. All sorts of concept art and soundtracks, and basically everything you could possibly ask for with the history of these games. It's a love letter to OG arcade goodness, and I cannot recommend it enough for any fighting game fan. If you are a fan of retro fighting games or just video game history in general, specifically when it comes to Marvel, this is an absolute no brainer. It's very, very good. There's very little I can say about it negatively. And so, heavily recommend you check that out. Moving on, we've got the newest game on this list, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which also kind of came and went because I think a lot of people don't hold it in as high of regard as the developer's previous game, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, but there's still some good stuff to be had here. The enemy types and variety aren't super, super great, but the characters are really fun to play as. This does also kind of play as a bit of a fighting game. For those that don't know, this is a beat 'em up that's meant to be very much like retro inspired. You've got your sprite art that is very, very good. I think one of the highlights to talk about is Venom because while he's fighting, you can see Eddie Brock kind of peeking out as like sort of the symbiote stretches a little bit, and just all of the different sprites that are made with the animation. There's just a ton of sprite work done in there that's all very lovingly crafted, and the environments also aren't too bad. Some of them are better than others. You can tell that this was kind of rushed out a little bit, where there were certain things that needed to be prioritized more than others. So I wish this had a little bit more time to cook in the oven, but if you pick this up on sale, it's pretty easy. I mean, if you love beat 'em ups, this is going to be right up your alley. And I think this is a lot of fun. So if you are down for Marvel, if you miss that sort of aesthetic, but you want more modern sensibilities, this is a game for you. I think this is one of the easier recommendations for people that do enjoy Marvel Tokon and are looking for something that they might not have checked out previously. This is probably a really good pick for you because I don't think a lot of people really heard about this game or tuned into it. I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. It's another one you can play in co-op. So if you're not necessarily wanting to get trounced in online stuff on Tokon, but you are looking to have some fun with other people, this is a really fun co-op game that you can have a lot of fun with and pull off some really cool stuff. So Marvel Cosmic Invasion, pretty good pick. Moving on, we've got a classic for the PS2 era. It's The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. There still has not been a Hulk game that has come close to this. While Hulk is actually pretty fun to play in Marvel's Avengers, this is the best standalone Hulk game, period. I mean, nothing's come close. It's been a long time since we've had a standalone Hulk game, and they should honestly change that because Ultimate Destruction is super sick. I mean, it's a little repetitive, but I don't think it's like anything too crazy under lot of games that came out at that time. And so I think this is very much a PS2 era game. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. But this is just some dumb, destructive fun. You can turn pretty much anything into a weapon. And as you progress through the game, you can unlock like more and more like cool weaponized things like, you know, transforming things into a ball and chain and doing really cool stuff with it. You unlock more and more moves as you go. It's not quite as cut and dry as you might think it is, but it's just good, dumb, shit up fun. And I would recommend it to anybody who hasn't tried it out, or if it's just been a while. I think it holds up, and so this is a nice like turn your brain off and just have fun game. Where Marvel Tokon isn't necessarily that. It can be very precise and complex when it wants to be. And so if you're looking for something a little more relaxing, this is very, very fun and also not that difficult to get a hold of nowadays for not that expensive. Finally, some people might think I'm a little weird for calling out this game versus a lot of others that came out around that time because not a lot of people are super big fans of it. But I think Spider Man Web of Shadows deserves a second look. Yeah, it's got some B movie dialogue, and the voice actor for Spider Man honestly kind of sucks. But there is some fun to be had in that cheesiness to it. And it's another one where you can kind of turn your brain off and have some fun with the symbiotes. This is when everybody was going crazy for Venom, and so there had to be stuff everywhere. You fight symbiote Wolverine, and that's super cool. There's really cool dialogue options back and forth, and sort of different like choose your own stuff where you can choose to do good things or bad things as the symbiote. And there's some really crazy stuff that happened. Like you can just straight up murder people as Peter Parker, which some might see as blasphemous. I'm not saying I want to see that in any Spider-Man movie or anything, but it is this cool what if type of thing. It feels kind of inspired by the Infamous games where you've got this sort of duality of like good versus bad. And there's just some cool stuff here. It's not a perfect game. It's probably one of the weakest games on this entire list, but I think there's some fun to be had if you're a Spider-Man fan or if you're just looking for a nice little beat 'em up, not that complicated. Some good times here. Weird one to end on, but hey, it's my list. I'm here to have fun. But I've been talking for a while here. I've gave you guys plenty of options. I tried to make this list as dynamic as possible where anybody can sort of find something that they might enjoy. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is there anything I've missed? Like I said, there are better Marvel games to talk about here. You've got Shattered Dimensions being a prime one, but I think everybody kind of knows about that game, and anybody interested would all like already be kind of tuned into that. I tried to get to some lesser known games and have some variety here to where somebody could find something new. So let me know down in the comments below your favorite Marvel game. Have you been playing Tokon? What do you think? Are you as obsessed with it as I am? Because like I've cleared out all the episodes now, and so I've been going into more of like combo challenges and everything, and really wanting to rip my hair out because that is a whole nother level compared to the episodes. But it's still a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. It's an easy 9 out of 10 for me. What do you guys think? Let me know. Let's have a conversation on all things Marvel. So, like if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more. See you guys next time for whatever it is I'm working on. All right. See ya.